Thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out for the Columbia and Snake Rivers webinar. My name is Darlene Salzer-Hall, and I'm a marketing manager here at Lindblad Expeditions. Just a couple things before we get started. If at any point you lose your connection to the webinar, just go back to the email invitation that you originally got and re-enter the webinar through the link provided there. And also on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a box where you can type in your questions. And we encourage you to do so throughout the presentation, and at the end we'll answer them. And I apologize ahead of time if we can't get to every single one, but we will provide an email address at the end where you can send any questions that were unanswered. So let's go ahead and get started. We've been leading expeditions on the Columbia and Snake Rivers for over 20 years. The experience we offer there, combined with our staff's knowledge of the region and their passion for sharing what they know, enables us to provide you with the most in-depth experience on the rivers. We have over 50 years of expedition travel experience around the world. This is a picture of our founder, Lars Erik Lindblad. He was the first to bring lay travelers to Antarctica and the Galapagos, and the first to lead expeditions to the Seychelles and Arctic Svalbard. And today, we're led by his son, Sven Olaf Lindblad, who's pictured here. I'm very proud to carry on the traditions of his father. And we've always, since day one, had a strong commitment to environmentally responsible tourism. In 2004, Lindblad entered into a strategic partnership with National Geographic. This was a natural alliance on many levels, as both organizations care deeply about exploration, discovery, conservation, and inspiring guests to not just explore, but also care about the planet. The partnership offers unparalleled benefits to guests, so it enables you to travel with some of the world's top photographers, naturalists, historians, and even chefs. And our staff. I can't say enough about our staff. We have the most robust expedition team on the rivers, and they have a wide variety of expertise. Every voyage sails with an expedition leader, a naturalist/geologist, historian, photo instructor, plus a wellness specialist and a video chronicler. And for you, this means more learning and more personal attention. They are truly incredible. There was a guest on one of our expeditions who said to me, if I could remember everything they told me, I'd have another year of college under my belt, which sums it up very well. And speaking of staff, today I'm thrilled to be joined by Sue Perrin. She's an expedition leader and has been with us for over 20 years, has led expeditions all over the world. She's been an educator in outdoor settings since 1986, has worked at Yosemite Institute in Maine, Yellowstone, Costa Rica, Belize, Grand Teton National Park. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Darlene, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am joining you from Bozeman, Montana, where we have had unseasonably warm weather. It's been in the 60s, which is very rare for this time of year, but I'm really enjoying it since I just got back from the Amazon and wasn't quite ready for cold weather yet. But I would like to tell you about this trip, which I have been doing since the probably mid to late 90s, and it's a great expedition. One of the highlights of the trip is the crew that you'll get to meet. And we have a crew-to-guest ratio of about 1 to 2. And then, of course, all the expedition staff that Darlene just told you about. And one of the things I really rely on as an expedition leader, and they never fail me, is that no matter what plan I have going for the day, the crew are always there ready to make it happen, whether it's our Zodiacs or our kayaks or getting the ship from point A to point B. It's a great team, and everybody works together, and they're a really fun group of people to get to know as well. And as Darlene mentioned, one of the things that is relatively new on our ships, but we've been doing it since our alliance with National Geographic, is that we have a certified photo instructor on every departure. And this person is really there for you, really there to help you learn about your camera, to learn how to take better photos. It doesn't matter whether you are a brand new photographer and you just bought your camera for the trip, or you've been taking photos for decades and have had a digital camera since they came out. They are there, you know, all hours of the day to help you learn more about taking photos, one-on-one, as well as giving presentations and some talks. Our platforms for this adventure are two of our ships, the National Geographic Seabird and the National Geographic Sea Lion. And they are great little ships. They're both 152 feet long. They hold 62 guests. And they're a wonderful platform for exploration, and they're really comfortable to travel in on the river. Each of the cabins has outside windows. A lot of them you access from the deck, but a few you access from inside the ship, but you all have a nice outside view. We also have Zodiacs on board, so you don't need to go far for our excursions. You board the Zodiacs right from the ship or right from our dock. And we always have an open bridge policy. So you're welcome to come up to the bridge, meet the officers, learn about navigation on the river, and just enjoy the view from up there. I'd like to take you on a little overview of the expedition, and we really hit all areas of what's going on the river and what has gone on the river in the past. We take a historic look at things, everything from Lewis and Clark to the maritime history to the native people who live there. We'll be looking at the natural history, and of course we'll be enjoying the cuisine that comes right from that area. One of the big historical components is learning about the Corps of Discovery that of course was led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. And we will visit several of the sites that they were at and have an opportunity to learn quite a bit both from our historian and from the museums that we stop at along the way. 3 of them have a Lewis and Clark part to them or are entirely dedicated to Lewis and Clark. I'd like to just show you a map and talk a little bit about the overall itinerary, and then I'll go day by day and talk about each of the locations. I will be talking in this slideshow about our trip that starts in Portland and ends in Clarkston, Washington. But every other week they switch, so you could either choose to start in Portland and end in Clarkston, or vice versa, start in Clarkston and end in Portland. But I'll be talking about the trip going from the west to the east. And so from Portland, you can see we go first out to Astoria at the mouth of the Columbia, and then we head up the river, traveling along the Columbia and then the lower Snake River until we get up to the border of Washington and Idaho. So when we leave Portland, we actually start out on the Willamette River, and we cruise through Portland, some of Portland's picturesque bridges on the way to join the Columbia River. And there are 8 bridges in that 13-mile stretch that we go, and we leave in the late afternoon. We board between 4:30 and 5:30 and get to see the city as the lighting's getting nice and the sun is setting as we head on down the river. And our first stop, the first morning, is Astoria, Oregon, and we'll spend the whole day at the dock there and go off on various adventures. The first stop is to go to Fort Clatsop. This is a National Historic Park, and it's where the Corps of Discovery spent the winter of 1805-06. And they have a replica of the fort built based on drawings in Lewis and Clark journals. And so we get to visit that as well as the museum they have there. There's also a chance for a little stroll on the trails as well. Then we go to the Columbia River Maritime Museum, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. I have an additional slide for that one. And then in the afternoon, we get an opportunity to either go see the Astoria Column, which is at a high point in Astoria, and it's 125 feet tall and gives you a view out over the mouth of the Columbia. And then other options we'd like to offer are things like a trip out to Cape Disappointment on the Washington side of the river right out at the mouth so that you can see and go touch the Pacific if you wish. Or sometimes, as long as conditions allow it, we go for a Zodiac cruise or kayaking at the Lewis and Clark Wildlife Refuge. The Columbia River Maritime Museum that I mentioned to you is just one of the best maritime museums I've been to. It has the whole fascinating history of the Columbia and that region. And it took quite a long time before the entrance to the Columbia was discovered. And then even after it was, it's such a dangerous entrance that it earns the nickname of the Graveyard of the Pacific. So the Maritime Museum talks about that history and river navigation, the canning and the salmon history in that area, as well as things like current day Bar Pilots Association and the Coast Guard training station that's set up near there. So once we leave Astoria, we of course will be going east the whole way, and the next morning we'll wake up in the Columbia River Gorge. And the Columbia River Gorge is basically where the river has cut through the Cascade Mountains. And so as you're on the west side, you're surrounded by the lush temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest and some very steep cliffs and mountains that are right along the river. It's very beautiful. And one of the highlights of being in the gorge is to get to see all the waterfalls that are coming off of the Oregon side. And the biggest one at 620 feet is Multnomah Falls. And we will leave our ship, board motor coaches, and take a short ride to go right up to the base of Multnomah Falls. There are several hikes that are offered here. You can just go for a stroll, enjoying the chance to take photos and just stretch your legs a little bit, or if you're looking for a more aerobic walk, that's also an option. There are a couple of trails near this area. We'll spend the morning seeing Multnomah Falls. When we get back on the ship, we'll go through Bonneville Lock and Dam, which will be the first of the dams we pass on our journey, and I'll talk more about the locks a little bit later. Our afternoon in this direction is spent in the vicinity of Hood River. When it's clear, you get to see Mount Hood, like in this photo. You know, it all depends on the weather. We never know what we're going to get to see, but it's not a totally unusual sight. But regardless of the weather, we'll be going exploring and seeing some of the local area, especially the Hood River Valley, what's called the Fruit Loop. And the Fruit Loop is where many different types of fruit trees are grown, as well as vineyards, and we'll be going to a little local farm to do some fruit tasting and see the various things they sell there. We will also learn about the grapes that are grown in the area, and we'll get to do this firsthand at one of the wineries in the area and also do some wine tasting while we're there. The next morning, we'll have continued further through the Columbia River Gorge, and we'll be on the eastern edge of the gorge. And once you go further east, you get into the rain shadow and away from the lush greenness. So it starts to get drier. And we'll be docking at the Dalles, Oregon. Here we spend the morning first going to the Columbia Gorge Discovery Center. Beautiful museum that focuses both on the natural history of the area as well as the human history of the area. They have also, as part of that museum, is the Wasco County Historical Museum. And there's also a little display on Lewis and Clark as well. They also have a raptor program there, so we usually get to see one of the captive rehabilitated birds that they have, whether it be an owl or a hawk. Depends on who they have out that day. And then after that, we go for a little stroll around the grounds, or we give you a chance to go for a bike ride. There are two trails we'd like to use in that area, either the historic Columbia River Highway, which has a section that is closed to cars but now reopened for walking and biking, depending on conditions. Sometimes we use that one, or else we use the river trail that starts right from the Discovery Center and goes along a beautiful path right above the Columbia. And so the biking is included if you wish to bike, or if you prefer to walk, we'll have our Naturalist Center photo instructors leading hikes. We go back on board for lunch, and then in the afternoon we take a short ride over to the Washington side and we go to the Maryhill Museum. You can see it here in the photo, and it's on a bluff above the Columbia. And it is a fascinating place because it is quite the mix of, quite the eclectic mix of artwork. There are everything from Rodin sculptures to a really fine collection of American Indian basketry, 300 chess sets, palace furnishings and artwork that were donated by Queen Marie of Romania in the 40s. So there's something for everyone in this museum. And there's also a beautiful grounds and an outdoor sculpture garden to stroll through and also photograph. As I mentioned, and of course you know, to get up the river we have to go through a series of locks that lift the ship going in this direction, or of course if you choose the other direction you'll be being lowered, and over 700 feet total. So there are 4 dams on the Columbia that we go through, and then 4 on the lower Snake, so making for a total of 8 lockages during the journey. The tallest one raises the ship 105 feet, so they're quite the fascinating engineering feat to get to see and experience. And when conditions permit, and usually it's something we can manage to do, we like to offer a chance to go through the lock in the Zodiacs. We have to get the lockmaster's permission, but usually they're happy to let us do that as long as there's not a lot of traffic going through with us. And so for anyone who wants to, we'll offer a Zodiac cruise through the lock. It's a fun perspective. For those of you who stay on the ship, you get to see the Zodiacs below you and use them for scale, and the people in the Zodiacs get just the opposite view. So it's a fun additional adventure through the locks. Our next day, we are in the vicinity of the Palouse Falls. We spend half of the day here. And at the Palouse Falls, it's a Washington State park, and it is a beautiful scenic area. The falls themselves are 198 feet tall, and they're cascading over basalt cliffs. And this whole area has been sculpted and carved 10,000 years ago by what are known as the Brett's Floods or the Missoula Floods. And so at one time, huge floodwaters that are much bigger than the falls you see here came coursing through this area and carving the landscape. And it wasn't even until the 70s until the man who suspected that this was how it happened was acknowledged as being right. In the afternoon, or the second half of that adventure is to get to go by kayak or by Zodiac to explore the Palouse River. So the kayaks you see here are downstream of the falls. The falls we get to by a bus, and the kayaking we get to from our ship by Zodiacs. If you wish to kayak, we'll have those out, or if you prefer to go in a Zodiac with a naturalist, we'll have our Zodiacs out. It's a great place for wildlife viewing, bird watching, and just enjoying the beautiful scenery. The second half of that day, we give you some time to relax on board while we cruise along the Snake River. But there's always something that the hotel manager has up his or her sleeve, and you never know when there could be a deck barbecue or a sampling of local specialties that will take place in the lounge or maybe even out on the deck if it's a nice day. And our final morning, we dock in the town of Clarkston, Washington, and this is at the confluence of the Snake and the Clearwater rivers. From here, we leave our ship and we go further than our ship can go by jet boat, and you're seeing a jet boat in this photo here. And we take those jet boats, we're gone all day, and we go up the Snake River into Hell's Canyon. It's a fun adventure. These boats are made for going through whitewater, which is always amazes some people, and they're very big and stable and comfortable. Everybody gets a seat with a back. And we stop once at a place called Cache Creek, which is a Forest Service site, but a historic ranch. And then we stop for lunch at the cafe owned by the jet boat company. Besides all of the adventures in the natural world and learning about the history in your cameras, you'll also have a chance to learn about the culinary aspects of this area. Throughout the week, the hotel managers will be arranging tastes of local fruit and vegetables. We buy fresh seafood, meat, and cheese from the area. Some of these things are picked up along the way at the various towns, and our chefs just do an amazing job of preparing these foods. We choose local food providers that are focused on organic and biodynamic and sustainable farming methods, and when you're on board, we'll have more information for you about which provider the various foods have come from. And while you're on board, we also will have local wine and craft beer. So So the wine tasting we do off the ship is not the only time you'll get to try the local wine. We have several varieties on board, as well as several of the beers from the region. And we try and choose beer providers that are committed to socially and responsible practices. And my particular favorite tasting is the chocolate tasting. Different confections from local providers. Sometimes it expands to be mustards and jams and jellies. The hotel managers are always looking out for a new treat to bring back to the ship to give you a chance to try. And finally, we do have some wellness options as well. We have our wellness specialist who offers a morning stretch class on board the ship on the sun deck so that you can enjoy the scenery of wherever we are that morning. And she also offers a variety of spa treatments and massages. So that's something you can fit into your free time on board. And when we do hikes, we know that some of you like to get out and get a more aerobic workout, and so our wellness specialist usually offers an aerobic hike at the same time that the photographer might be offering a photo walk and the naturalist and geologist offering their walk. So we like to have something for everyone, give you some choices. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Darlene.
Thank you so much, Sue. That was great. So we also offer 2 optional extensions. We have a Willamette Valley Wine Tour and a Portland, Oregon City Tour. Both, I have to say, are very close to my heart, having been lucky enough to live in Portland for a couple years, and now I miss it all the time. But if you haven't explored Portland and you are on this voyage, it's definitely something great to do. It's only a day. You can do it before or after your trip, and you don't have to trek far to get there. You're already there. So we'll start with the Portland tour, which is a guided tour, and you see some quintessential city highlights. You'll go to the historic Pittock Mansion that's featured here in the bottom picture, and from there see some of those gorgeous, iconic views of Portland and the mountain peaks. You'll also explore the 4 different quadrants, or main quadrants. Each has its own personality, northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. You'll visit at least 2 of Portland's parks, which are all beautiful and green and lush. And you'll have a naturalist guide with you the whole time who's bringing it alive, interpreting the natural history, some of the flora and fauna, and spotting birds that you see along the way. On the Willamette Valley Wine Tour, you'll visit 3 boutique wineries, Rex Hill, Red Ridge Farms, and Dobbs Family Estates. Each one of these represents distinctive elements of the Willamette Valley. So from biodynamic farming practices to unique single block and single clone wines. And this also includes dinner at one of 2 restaurants, either at the Painted Lady, which Gourmet Magazine called one of America's best farm-to-table restaurants, or at Jory, which has a wine-paired menu that really pays tribute to Oregon's agricultural bounty, wines, microbrews, and handcrafted distilled spirits. And our voyages are a great value. You can embark on our ships without $1 in your pocket and have an amazing time. Here's a list of everything that our voyages include: accommodations, ground transfers to and from group flights, all meals, non-alcoholic beverages, plus 24-hour coffee, tea, and soda on demand, activities, shore excursions, and all Zodiac and kayak excursions, tips, taxes, port charges, and service charges, with gratuities to the crew at your own discretion. Morning stretch classes that Sue had talked about with the wellness specialist, which up there on the upper deck offers an unbeatable view each day as the landscapes change around you. Services of our expedition team, who are just amazing, which includes different talks and presentations, and as well as hors d'oeuvres and snacks during nightly recap, which is a ritual we have every evening before dinner in the lounge where everyone gathers, and the expedition leader or the naturalist, one of the naturalists will expand on some of the themes that you're seeing, whether it be historical or geological, etc. And also, of course, we send complete pre-journey info, including what to bring and a reading list. And here's a list of the distinct features we offer guests. You travel with an expedition team who's truly dedicated to seeing that you get the most out of your journey. And we have the most robust expedition team on the Columbia and Snake Rivers as well. You learn more through our alliance with National Geographic. We have the Lindblad National Geographic Certified Photo Instructor on every expedition that Sue mentioned, and other National Geographic experts on certain dates, which we'll get to in a minute. We offer a robust set of tools for exploration that really make the experience especially rich, including Zodiacs and kayaks. As the pioneers of expedition travel, and with 20 years experience sailing the rivers, we know it better than anyone. The cuisine, delicious, local, sustainable, as Sue had talked about, and provided by socially responsible farmers and growers. And we also have a vegetarian option at every meal and can accommodate dietary restrictions on request. And we've got our video chronicler aboard to record this once-in-a-lifetime experience. This is a person who's there capturing all the key moments. And they edit a video and put it together, and it's available at the end of the trip. And flexibility and choice are a hallmark of our expedition, so we're always looking to maximize the guest experience based on what is happening. And here's a look at some of the National Geographic experts that we have on board. You might have heard of the late historian Stephen Ambrose. Well, his daughter, Stephanie Ambrose Tubbs, also an author and historian and Lewis and Clark expert. She will be on the September 13th departure. She wrote the Lewis and Clark Companion and Why Sacagawea Deserves a Day Off. And on the right here is Barton Seaver. He's an acclaimed chef, author of a book called For Cod and Country, and he's a National Geographic Fellow and also works at Harvard with the culinary team there. He's got all culinary innovation and sustainability DNA, and he was named to the U.S. Culinary Ambassador Corporation as the first ever Sustainability Fellow in Residence by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. He'll be on October 14th. And we have 2 fall foliage photo expeditions on October 2nd and October 8th. These are timed to capture the colors of the fall season. These are great expeditions for any level of photographer. So whether you're a beginner, advanced hobbyist, or serious shooter, they feature outings timed to take advantage of the best light, plus different share and learn opportunities like onboard photo clinics, one-to-one critiques, and you have the chance to learn from a National Geographic photographer. Rich Reed will be on both departures. He's a specialist in travel, environmental, and adventure photography for over 20 years. We also have a couple of special offers. We're offering a $550 air credit on the October 14th and October 20th departures. This is for new bookings only and need to be booked by June 30th. And we also have an expedition exclusive that applies to all departures. We are providing wine and craft beer tastings with our compliments during evening recap and dinner as a way to experience the full richness and culinary scene of Oregon and Washington. We encourage you to learn more and explore this more on our website, which is Expeditions.com. There you can find detailed itineraries, daily expedition reports, videos, staff bios, and more. And this webinar will be online at Expeditions.com/webinars next week. You can also find webinars for all of our other destinations there as well. Now we'll go ahead and take some questions that have been coming in. Let me just take a look. Let's see. It looks like there aren't many questions coming in. If anyone has any, please go ahead and send them in, and we'll take a minute and answer them. Okay. Well, not many questions tonight. Let's see. Give it a minute. Oh, someone was asking about, okay, a couple questions coming in. Thanks, everyone. Sue, could you talk about the climate and weather in the fall a little bit on the rivers?
Yes. So our trips are in September and October, as you have probably seen. And it is a little hard for me to say one week is a particular way and the other one is another way. However, it's fall, so trips tend to get a little cooler as the fall progresses. Exactly what that means depends on the year. It can be like summer in September and down to freezing by the end of October, or we can have a colder bit in September and then it can warm up again to Indian summer. But I would dress in layers, especially bring some layers for the jet boat ride. It is enclosed when the weather gets cooler, but you do have some the ability to open the windows and have a little bit of fresh air there. And the mornings tend to be cooler just in general in that part of the country. So I would bring clothes for rain, bring clothes for being outdoors in probably 40 to 70 degree weather. I know this is hard to nail down, but normally I would say it always gets colder by the end of October, mid and late October, and I was there last year at that time, and it was quite lovely. So, but you know, expect nice fall weather.
Great, thank you so much, Sue. Someone else was asking about what dates we're sailing, and I happen to have this here. This is, of course, on our website, in our brochures, etc. But we've got departures pretty much throughout September and October, pretty much every week. It's a 7-day, 6-night trip. So it starts, the first one's on September 13th. We've got September 13th, 14th, 19th, 20th, 26th, and then October 2nd, 8th, 14th, and 20th. So there's a range of dates there within those 2 months. And I'm just looking at questions coming in. Bear with me for 1 second. Someone is asking about 2014 trips in September. And right now we're focused on 2013, but if at any point you want to put your name in for a 2014 trip, you can call 1-800-EXPEDITIONS, and we can definitely take that information. Our expedition specialist will facilitate that. Sue, someone is asking what departures you are on.
This year, unfortunately, I am not on the river because of some other scheduling. I know I'll be there again in 2014, but this year I am not currently scheduled for any of the river trips, but there are other expedition leaders that know the area very well as well.
And you'd mentioned you had a lot of Alaska trips, yes? Or some coming up this year?
I have some in May
this
year.
And
May and August, actually.
Okay, cool. And you know, on our website at Expeditions.com, we've got each staff member and their departures on there. So if anyone's interested in traveling with a specific staff member, that information is available.
Yeah, if you guys want to find me in the fall, you're going to have to come to the Amazon. I'll show you a different river.
Okay. Someone is asking, sorry, I have such a little tiny box here that shows me the question, so bear with me as I'm reading this. Someone asked, do we go to the National Park Unit for Lewis and Clark?
Yes. The Fort Clatsop is the National Historic Park, so yes. That's on our Astoria Day.
Okay, great, at Fort Clatsop. Makes sense. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for your questions. I think we've covered a lot of them that have come in. And if your question hasn't been answered or you have any others, the email address right here, you can feel free to send us a note at webinarinfo@expeditions.com. And here you've got the phone number for us, 1-800-EXPEDITION, 1-800-397-3348, and our hours of operation that our expedition specialists are available here. So we hope to see you on board soon. And Sue, thank you so much for taking us through this and for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Great to be here. Sorry I can't interact with you all, but I know you're out there.
All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for your time. Have a good night.
Night, Darlene. Bye, everyone.